On today's episode of the Officialdomj radio show, I'm honored to have one of my closest brothers from another mother joining us, a gentleman that is an engineer and an expert in the oil and gas industry, a connoisseur of all the finer things life has to offer, and a Second Amendment enthusiast like myself, Christopher Reynolds, aka Billy D. Williams. How you doing today, bro?
Wonderful to have, man. Definitely appreciate you having me.
Hey man, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to be here to join us on the show today. But I know you just celebrated a birthday. We were talking before, before we were recording and after. How'd your birthday go? Happy belated, man. Many blessings to you and the family.
Yeah, appreciate it. Man, it was great, man. Surrounded by family. Just taking in the times and blessed to still be here and keep it kicking.
That's real, bro. That's real, man. Taking it one day at a time, man. But how you feeling, bro? How you feeling? Just a temperature check-in. It's something I've seen people doing before, so I think I'm gonna start incorporating that into my check-ins. How you feeling?
Oh man, I'm feeling great. It's a time to be alive, man. We got a lot of stuff going on out there.
Facts.
It's a lot of folks feel, I guess, uneasy, but I say, man, the best thing to do to keep grinding is to make sure that you keep solid people in your life, man. That's one of the best things that you can do, and kind of surround yourself with as much truth as you possibly can.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I find myself trying to lock in, like you're saying, in that aspect, and still keep it 100 and have the circle keeping it 100 has really been like just one of the ways a brother has gotten through these last 2 or 3 years, man. Trying not to get distracted, discouraged, any of it, because it'd be a lot of BS going on.
Absolutely, man. I'm telling
you. Yeah, man. But hey, man. Like I said, I know you're an expert. You're an LSU grad. Shout out to the alma mater and whatnot. All pleasantries aside, there, man. But what the hell is up with these gas prices, man? They've been up, they've been down, they've been all over the place. What's going on in your industry, bro? Crucial to our everyday life. Tell us about it.
Well, I mean, the first thing I can tell you is that we really shouldn't be surprised about the gas prices. And we're at war. I mean, even if we're not shooting any shells out off the coast of Florida or anything, we're in a position to where Russia, one of the largest oil and gas producers, is kind of shut off from the rest of the world. And so it's pretty much got the entire petrochemical industry in a frenzy, and they're trying to compensate. So your rates are going up everywhere across the world, and they're pretty much trying to figure out how to meet demand with such a large chunk missing. It's kind of its own little pandemic for the oil industry. So we can't really look at what it is that we're doing here to try to find some blame for that. I mean, it's as far as your major oil and gas companies in the United States, a lot of them are basically investing in themselves. And I know they talk about some of these companies having massive profits, and that's not anything unheard of with oil and gas industry, right?
Right.
But it is more the fact of when they take those profits, how much are they putting back into the business? Well, if they have to increase production the way that they've been doing these past 2 years, because the pandemic threw a lot of stuff off, right?
Yeah.
Now the fact that Russia's missing, they're putting all these profits right back into the business, and that means they have to run all of their units at max rates. They have to gather as much crude as they can from some unconventional areas around the world, and they have to process it twice as fast. And for them to do that, and that costs money. So even though we're seeing a massive increase in profits, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's taking a briefcase of cash home,
No, that's enlightening. I hadn't thought about that, but it makes sense. I feel like everything else has sort of been tied in, the whole job situation, the supply chain issues. So it would make more sense then that having a war and having a big supplier in that industry, like you're saying, not be a participant is causing this sort of, trickle down effect, if you will, or fucking domino effect, for lack of better terms.
Absolutely. And you said it right there. It's the fact of a lot of these businesses, they decided they wanted to play it a bit conservative when the pandemic happened. And then once the pandemic ended, they went full throttle. You know, they held back a lot of uh, businesses. Let's see what the term is. Projects. They held back a lot of projects, and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't spend the way that they needed to. But then once production had picked up, once there was a lot more traveling, once people were back out on the road, once concerts and shows and holidays were all back in full effect, everybody wanted to get back out on the road. So you're talking about demand hit a pretty high point at a pretty quick route. And what happened was that, you know, now that we have all this demand, we have to figure out how to be able to supply for these people. And once that got
Right.
rolling, then bam, Russia got into the position that they were in, and they shut off their oil gates, and now everybody's trying to figure out how to compensate for that. So it's all one big thing. And when it comes to what you do with the petrodollar, it is a global thing. It's not an American thing. It's not a Venezuelan thing. It's not any individual nation like Saudi Arabia, anything else. It's all one big package together.
Yeah. So there's really, with it being a war essentially, and that being a critical component of it, there's really no, I feel like, definitive end in sight. I mean, is that a reach by saying that? Because I know the like pandemic is over to certain degrees and in certain ways, but it's not technically over. It seems like it's rolled into an inflation slash recession simultaneously, and so with the war outlook, is it just going to be more of the same in that capacity?
So not necessarily. So
Okay.
the pandemic is moving more towards what we call an endemic. We're looking at it to where uh, enough of the population have been exposed to COVID. When you do see the sicknesses of it right now, it's not as severe as it was obviously in the beginning. You have people that are getting COVID for their second, third, fourth, I even heard fifth time. And it's something that is actually a little more manageable, if that makes sense. We can't necessarily say whether these vaccines are absolutely doing something, you know. And definitely, I'm no medical doctor, so I'm not gonna
Right, right. Preface the show right there that we are not
yeah,
medical experts.
I'm not gonna put any words in anybody's mouth. But
Right.
we've seen enough of a combination of things happening to where we're recognizing at the end of the day we are effectively fighting against this thing. And really, if anything, my doctor tells me it all has to do with time. With enough exposure, um, this
Mm-hmm.
virus will reach an endemic, and it will hit the population in a way to where, you know, things just simply won't be as bad. But then also, with these, when it comes to the oil and gas industry, with the demand being so high, it doesn't necessarily mean that demand is getting higher and higher each week. What's
Mm-hmm.
happening is that when there's production from all of these major 5, 10 oil companies around the world, with them increasing their production, and that includes all of your American companies, Saudi Arabia, OPEC, any of these types of nations, since they're increasing their production, they're going to meet the demand. And actually, as of right now, production is beyond demand. That's why you're actually seeing a bit of a price drop right now.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, it's the sort of tilting scale. I feel like kind of going back and forth to a degree, and we're sort of just having to ride the wave. Because, like you're saying, it's not a isolated incident as much as it is a global incident, and being in the midst of a war all ultimately just has to complicate that another degree, or two or three. Hell.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we will see some relief from this. This isn't the first time it's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have a short memory of these things, but there was a point in time in the past where gas was up at about $5 a gallon, but it didn't last too long. And we need to have a little bit of faith. I know I sound like, I'm in the pocket of some of these businesses, but we need to have a little faith with understanding that oil and gas companies want to make profit for a very long time. They're not looking for a get-rich-quick scheme. They want to make sure that they're able to make the money that they need to make in the long term and continuously reinvest in their business so, they can turn those kinds of profits years down the line.
Right.
Basically churning out as much as they can to do anything in the short term is absolutely against what they're doing. So they're looking at the long term. They're looking at the next 10 to 15 to 20 years. And they also are looking into the transition from oil and gas to alternative fuels. And if you really look at it, they are pretty much meeting exactly the demand that they need to transition into that. So let's not look at it and just believe that oil and gas companies are just poaching that petrodollar, and they're trying to get as much as they can out of it. That's technically not what's happening. A lot of folks on the political side, a lot of folks on the, and look, I even say, even our president is saying it. And I'm definitely not blaming Joe Biden. I'm not a political person in any way. I don't feel Biden versus Trump or any of that type of conversation is even necessary. But we do want to factor in that at the end of the day, presidents don't necessarily know about this stuff either. And I know that sounds a little crazy, like they have economists that kind of stand there and tell them what's going on. But a lot of that always does have to do with some type of political agenda that goes beyond what the American person is looking for. So if we do subtract all that and we look at the bare bones of it, we need to recognize that this is an issue that is global and that we have to do everything we can as all businesses together in terms of how our economy flows to solve it so that people can stay on the road, people can get gas to go to work, people can take care of their children, get to their jobs, do everything it is they need to do.
Right.
Poaching the system, it's just not going to work. It's not an effective thing overall, and we have to kind of calm ourselves and make sure that we understand that every business definitely needs profit, but every business needs to operate in the long term, not just in the short term. And that's what these companies are doing right now.
No, that's a great point. I find myself thinking of myself as a business, as Jay-Z would, suggest everyone should. I'm not a businessman. I'm a business, man. You know what I'm saying? In that sense, I find one of the ways I do myself that favors by staying my ass at the house as much as possible. Because I find out if you leave the house, it will get expensive on you hella quick.
That is true. And if you have anything that drinks 93 octane, it's not fun at all.
I can only imagine, man. I've seen some screenshots, bro. I'm on that 89 most times, even though I just got the new whip. But boy, oh boy, at the peak of all of this, maybe a month and a half or so ago, I was feeling like I was getting robbed, and it was about to have me on some ski mask behavior. But I digress. Things have since,
ski mask.
you know what I'm saying? Things have since digressed and calmed down a bit there. But you brought up a good point. The whole shift to the clean air or alternative energy initiatives. How does that sort of play into the petroleum side of it? Because I know you're saying like they have a sort of, I feel like, advantage in jumping on that what feels ahead of time, even though it's probably and most realistically behind the times, if you will, for let's say the next 5 to 10 years. I know everybody's got a number of initiatives they've kicked off since the president sort of put his own out there for a certain duration if people can meet it by 2030 or something crazy like that. So how does that sort of impact where we are now?
Well, I guess the first thing is I want to give that disclaimer again. I am not of any political affiliation.
This is not a political podcast.
I don't wear a blue or red tie when it comes to this.
Yeah.
But I do want everybody to be cautious that when it comes to the market that we have here in this country and around the world, we don't want to force things. Things happen more naturally, and as they happen naturally, as certain people make decisions, say whether they're at the dealership looking to buy an electric vehicle or a V8 5.7 Hemi, truck. At the end of the day, we can't force that decision, because if we do, we're going to see some irregular offsets in the market, and we're going to almost start digging ourselves into a deeper hole. So when it comes to that politically, hey, we definitely want to ensure that the transition is smooth. We definitely want to make sure that as we do this, that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot. I think that's a very proper term to say right now. We don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot, meaning that as we do transition to this, that we make sure that we do it the way it's supposed to be done. And that literally means that every individual that walks to the dealership or the two dealerships, they're looking at the Tesla dealership, and we're using Tesla as an example, but what's happening is that Tesla was used as a major company to set off the EV market, and it's done so. It's done so effectively. And now it's got a couple champions that are rising around it that are becoming very effective EV companies, but our top auto manufacturers right now, they are in the position to where they can push out their electric vehicles. Yeah, I think we saw Chevy produce, a Chevy Spark, and few other vehicles that, they
Right.
kind of hit very specific markets, but they weren't the vehicles that everybody wanted. As people are recognizing, or as the industry is recognizing that people are going to the dealership and they're making more conscious choices, it allows them to introduce vehicles that they've had in the bag for a while. It's not like they have to figure out how to come up with these things, because automakers, they want to keep making money long term as well. And
Right.
they
They're
are in a
in
position where
5 year
they can
plan, 10-year plans with these
absolutely,
rollouts.
they can start producing, or they can start uh, presenting these vehicles that they've had, on the drawing board for a while, and they can allow people to make a conscious decision. But if our government feels that they want to almost force it by giving, say, an ultimatum, saying we're going to have nothing but electric vehicles by the year 2025, that's not the safest thing to do.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is that you're going to have a resistance in the market. The supply will be there, the demand may not be there. You're going to have people that will refuse it. You ever had a conversation with somebody who says, there's no way in hell I'm driving the Tesla because I just like the feel of a V8 motor. I just like the feel
Yeah,
of that
man.
twin turbo, those people still exist. And if you attempt to force it, what's going to happen is that you're going to get a large amount of supply and the demand will not be there. And one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to an EV is that the amount of carbon footprint it takes to produce one electric vehicle with batteries and all, it takes about 5 years of a gas combustible engine to run, meaning the general lifespan of a vehicle, we actually do label it at 5 years, right, or 120,000 miles.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you're talking about the carbon footprint of that one EV vehicle coming out the assembly line is equivalent to 5 years of a combustible engine running. So what that means is that if you want all of a sudden put 4 million EV vehicles out on the market, it's equivalent to 5 years of 4 million combustible engines there in the field immediately. That's a big, huge carbon footprint. And that's something that we have to figure out how to compensate for if we're talking about working with the environment. That's not a productive thing. Batteries are expensive too. So it's the price factor of it and the carbon footprint that we have to recognize. If we attempt to force this, we're going to be pushing a lot more carbon out into the industry, out into the world than what we're supposed to. That's not good.
And that's ironic when you're thinking of the switch from, like you're saying, the whole gasoline movement to an alternative energy source. If it en route to trying to make that the status quo, it shits on the environment. I doubt that's
Yeah.
how they envision that project playing out.
I mean, look, we're very young with this alternative fuels.
Right.
It is something that the world wants to do, And I tell people, man, don't think oil and gas industry and the oil and gas industry is trying to do this as well. You know, we've heard that Chevron and Exxon and all of them are starting to slow down their oil exploration. They're looking for more alternative fuels. We're hearing these things from them. They have to be light years ahead to be able to make sure that they continue to make their profits. And we do understand that the world is actively searching for alternative energies.
Right.
We have to recognize as of right now, the solar panel 20 years ago versus right now, it's not even close to being the same. You have a lot more efficiency, a lot more effectiveness than what it is. But what happened was that a massive amount of industry decided to get into this, including companies like Tesla. These Tesla solar panels, these things are magnificent compared to any type of solar panel that they've had before. The efficiency is so much greater. But now that we're looking at being able to, I guess, master solar, we still have a little way to go, but we're getting to that point, and it's making it a little more effective to be able to use it. It's still expensive, so we haven't standardized it yet. But we are looking at being able to transition the effectiveness of solar to the industry to where it actually becomes a reasonable thing, both on the carbon footprint side and the price side, to be able to get solar and use it effectively to push energy back into the market, because that's what happens when you get these Tesla solar panels. But now that we're doing that, it's making solar an effective way to be able to use alternative fuels for our advantage. Can't really say that for wind power yet. Those turbines, I guess they look pretty. They will beat the shit out of a bird, I can tell you that. These things run into a bird, it's not going to be nice. And
Yeah,
then
that's
the way that
raps.
these blades are produced and the material that they are, you can't really recycle them too well. So you're talking about landfills that can pop up with these things if they don't become, or if they don't produce what they're supposed to produce within the lifespan of where they're at. So now you're talking about a potential loss if these things don't produce energy from this wind power over X amount of time. But the thing is that it doesn't mean we shouldn't be looking at wind power. It just means we have to figure out how to make it more effective. And the same thing with hydropower. Same thing with what else do we have out there? Nuclear. I think nuclear is a very important one that we need to talk about.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just saw on TikTok, not to just sort of cut you off there, but a water-powered engine. And I don't know why that was like a mind-blowing concept to me, but I feel like something that if the wrong person creates that and it picks up any sort of momentum or steam, we're going to find that person RIP'd shortly thereafter, it seems like.
Hey, so look, I'm definitely not going to... I'm not going to touch the conspiracy side of that with a 10-foot pole, but I am saying at the end of the day, from what I've seen and heard about these engines doing what they're doing, it sounds amazing. Yeah. And it really does take a pioneering type of, I'm not going to say individual, not an Elon Musk type of person, but a business to be able to perfect this and skyrocket into the future. Now, the one thing that I do know about anything that's water powered is that we do want to make sure that corrosives and things like that stay out of the system. So when it comes to that, it's a purity type of factor. And usually when it comes to purity, we have to ask ourselves how effective would an individual be with repairing that? Meaning, can you standardize the technology to where it becomes an effective thing that people can use?
Right, your average Joe could, if it breaks down or has an issue, could repair it in that sense, yeah.
Yeah. And if they can't, well then, what's the cost of, XYZ company taking that service off of the average consumer's hands? So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the idea of it. I haven't really done a lot of the, mechanical thermal system side of it. I haven't done too much of that research. But from what I have looked at, these things are possible. It's just more of the standardization of it and the overall maintenance, whether that's something that could actually happen. Now, look, I'm hoping, I'm praying that, somebody like Elon Musk, or maybe, can get like a black version of that somewhere, somebody comes along.
Somebody for us.
Yeah, somebody tries to take on this technology and be able to figure out how to put it out in the world. Because the thing is that if there are water-powered engines, if there are I use hydropowered engines because the thing is, it may not just be tap water that you're using. It could be some type of deionized water, something that would be able to would burn a little cleaner than just water, right? Boil a little cleaner. But the idea is that if we're able to produce something like that, we need to figure out how to be able to put it out in the market. And the one thing I will say, regardless of the conspiracies and whatnot, when it comes to us as human beings, that have TikTok, that have Instagram, that have Wikipedia, that have, unlimited access to this wide world of internet. Man, let's get some folks together and figure this out. Like I'm always
here for that.
Optimistic towards that side. Let's say, man, we're LSU alumni. Man, let's get LSU on something like this. Let's get some young scientists that really want to tackle this and see how they can bring this to the market. That's what's the most exciting thing about all of this alternative fuel things, that there are unlimited options right now as long as we're able to think it.
No, man, I'm here for it. I think that's the best thing about the continual envelope pushing, if you will, is just continuing to look at alternative options, never thinking that there's just the one way of doing it and this is the way it has to be. It just is really, like you're saying, getting the backs and the minds behind it to make it easier for, again, a large consumer base. So whatever that would look like, I would love if our alma mater took their hands on something like that. But regardless, I'd like to see it come to fruition just for the sense of I feel like it's a way of propelling things forward. Alternative energies are here to stay. So, hey, that's, without crashing a market or trying to force everyone to do it, let's at least get to a point where we know the research is as sound as it could be for your average Joe to then say, all right, well, let's start rolling these vehicles out.
And the one thing is kind of like we were just talking about, it's really going to take a combination of these things. I don't think there's going to be one solid alternative. We do
Right.
like to think batteries might do that in some sense, but perfecting the efficiency of a battery, that is a long term thing. That's going to take a lot of trial and error, and it's going to be something that will take years to be able to make sure that we perfect. And when I'm talking about that, I mean something in lines of space exploration, something in lines of
I was going
being
to say
able
a
to
lot of
power
blow ups like NASA.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's not repeat too many of those Apollo mess up missions, But it's more the fact of, it's going to take folks to get out there to really figure these things out, to test them, and to perfect them. And like I said, look, I'm not the biggest Elon Musk fan, but I will say people like him, people like Jeff Bezos, these billionaires that are deciding to spend their money on specific types of innovation for the world. I know a lot of folks shit on them because we're not paying too many Amazon people the wage that we think they should be having.
Right.
But they are reinvesting their fortunes into something that is going to actually supposed to be sufficient for the world over time. And I know we sometimes lose sight of that because sometimes we want to think about what's right in front of us, but the rest of us are here to do that. I encourage people, if you feel some kind of way about somebody investing a couple $100 billion into a space exploration program, well, hey, let's dedicate a couple weekends to doing something with the ocean. And I've sat and talked with people that do that. I sit and talk with people who talk about the major issues that we have. Don't get me wrong. I am all excited about space exploration, but I do understand that we've probably discovered less than 30% of our own oceans.
Right.
Actually, I'm thinking it's much less than that.
That's what I'm saying. Probably around 10 to 15, I imagine. It always feels like a very minuscule number for being present in 2022.
Yeah, a very small amount of our own oceans we've been able to discover. And it's not that we're not working on this stuff, but it's just not on the front page of CNN or Fox News or whatever it is they talk about because I don't watch any of these days.
Right. That's real, man. Well, I appreciate you stopping by the show, man, and dropping some gems. I think ultimately, I feel like it's, like you're saying, in the consumer's hands. There are a number of alternatives to not only be interested in, but to get behind and seeing how can I be a part of the movement, how can I advance it further in any small manner. And so really just finding which one is the one you think would be best and sort of making that maneuver for the next vehicle. It won't be me doing it anytime soon because, like I said, I just got that big truck, that big thing last year, so that's what I'm riding in for the next few years. But overall, I can definitely support the movement and see the use of the alternatives there, man. But where can the people find you, man? What's next for you, bro?
That's the thing. We'll be seeing pretty soon. I've got a few things under my belt or under the hood of my vehicle.
Yeah.
I haven't decided to fully expose yet, but
Right.
man, I put it this way: I hate to make it sound like it's a movement because I think that's kind of the way I've been going with this conversation. But it's like, man, I really want this next generation of folks. Man, look, I'm gonna tell you, being young and black in this country, it's a blessing right now. I know people say that it shouldn't be, but when I say it's a blessing, I mean that we have more freedom to interact with each other at this point. Young black folks in this country have such a blessing to be able to do so with the amount of resources that they have at their fingertips. No generation of us in this country before have had that ability to do so. Let's take that power, let's harness it, and let's do something for the future that's going to be extremely productive for our people and for the rest of the world, but for our people as well. It's something that's important, and you're going to see me out there doing that stuff, man. I'm going to be in public schools. I'm going to be having conversations with the youth. I'm going to be recruiting folks to get not just the LSU. Look, I didn't go to a HBCU. I'm a big fan of them,
Right.
I want us to utilize our universities. I want us to put some of our kids in there. And also, I'm not just talking about college as well. We need to get some of our kids in some of these trade schools. We need to teach some of these young black folks how to be able to make money and be able to enjoy their lives and not just slave away at situations that seem like they're almost dead end. Because I'm going to tell you, that old American dream, almost dead end at this point.
Hey, man, that's real talk. And I think a great point for us to wrap on right there. That old American dream is dead on. Dead ass, deaded, however you want to phrase it for the next generation. It's all about innovation. I'm here for
Absolutely.
it. Definitely here for it. Well, Chris, man, again, thank you for your time today. Thank you for stopping by the show, and we'll definitely, obviously, be in touch because we fuck with each other in real life. One of my closest compadres, my partners. But again, thank you for stopping by the show, man. Really appreciate you dropping the jewels on us.
All right, man. Thank you for having me, man.
Yes, sir.
Remember, future's in your hands.